Hey everybody, Nick Licameli here. Today we're jumping on real quick here, and I want to talk about an experience I had uh, with a water filtration company, and it reminded me so much of what happens in healthcare, and it's not good. So I had my mechanic story a few weeks back, where that kind of enlightened me in a positive way, where there was something going on with my car. They used some big terminology. I didn't know what the problem was. I didn't understand. I was afraid of the unknown, basically, and didn't know if it was going to be expensive. Didn't know if it was something serious. And basically, they told me you could do this, which is a couple hundred or $1,000, whatever it was, or you can just make sure you check the oil, and your car should be fine. And I said that really resonated with me because that's what needs to happen more in the healthcare industry, but doesn't. Um, the opposite tends to happen, where the mechanic will look at something simple and make it more complex, to instill fear in the client, to form almost like a dependency, and they just keep making money as the patient or client keeps coming in. Um, that's the kind of experience I had with this water filtration company. Now, I know nothing about water. I know nothing about the health risks of water. So keep that in mind. I'm not talking about water or whether or not you should filter your water or not. Nothing to do with that. This conversation is going to talk about why we need research and the importance of research, to back claims and back observations. So we send in a sample of our water, and we get a call back saying that there are some high levels of something or other, and using words that we don't understand. So naturally, it instills fear in us. Of course, not me, because I always think, where's the evidence? You have to prove something to me. If you're going to make a claim, you have to prove something to me. Um, but it would instill fear in most people when they say you have high levels of uh, minerals that sound like they're elements on the periodic table, right? So we had a gentleman come to the house, and he opens up his kit, and he has all these different tubes, all these test tubes and flasks, and he gets some samples of our water, puts it down, and adds in all these different drops and mixtures, and one turns blue, and one sediments form at the bottom of the container, and he gives his whole spiel about how our water is loaded with this stuff, and because it took so many amount of drops to turn blue, that means that our water is at risk for X, Y, and Z, has high levels of this, has high levels of that, and now whether or not that was true, I don't know, right? I don't know if the tests he was doing were accurate or reliable or valid. I don't know that. That's the first problem. Neither does he, right? He was a salesman who was taught by a salesman who was taught by a salesman. He's not a scientist. He's not a researcher. So he's doing these tests that he probably doesn't even know what's going on. And he comes to a conclusion that there are elements of something in my water. Then he goes on to say, because your water contains these things, so let's just play along and say that those tests did measure what they said they measured. He went along to say, because your water contains these things, you will your skin will dry out more in the shower. It can cause cancer down the road. That he also compared. He said that's why older people who never smoke, never drink, live healthy lives get cancer later on in life because they've been drinking water that they never knew had these things in it. And basically just making claims that are I can't imagine are substantiated by the research. So the idea here is that is the reason why we need research, because you can have an observation. You can have an observation that my water contains something, but we can't draw the conclusion that that's dangerous, right? What if our bodies are perfectly capable of ingesting that stuff and releasing it? What if it's good for us, right? We don't know that, or at least this gentleman didn't explain that to us. He just concluded that it was bad because it was in there. If we let this go without research and without evidence to prove things that we observe, you get this fear mongering, right? And it instills fear and dependency. And his whole pitch was to scare us, and prove to us that our health was at risk and our 9-week-old baby's health was at risk if we didn't get this water filter. It's this same fear-mongering bullshit that happens in the healthcare system. Someone comes in asymptomatic. I can evaluate them head to toe and make a list of impairments. Muscles that are weak, muscles that are tight, things with their posture. I could relate their foot to their back pain. I can relate their neck to their knee pain. I can do all that if I have a big enough imagination. I can put fear in that person. I can tell them, if you don't get this fixed, if you don't have me treat you 3 times a week for 12 weeks, you're going to get arthritis in your knees down the road. Or you're not going to be able to pick up your kids down the road if you don't get this fixed right now. And we don't have evidence to support those kind of claims. It's the same concept. We are taking an observation and we're labeling it as bad when we don't have the evidence to support that. That puts fear in people and that makes them dependent, and it makes it unfair because you're in a position of authority and they're going to listen to you. So if you take that position and use it to make a profit, that is not okay. That's messed up, right? We can do it with anything. It doesn't have to be the body in physical therapy. It doesn't have to be the water. It could be the air quality, right? I could take a sample of the air and find things in the air. And then I can say, oh, this air is very dangerous because it has X, Y, and Z in it. It can cause cancer. It can cause this. It can cause that. And you have to get this air filtration system, right? So the idea here is that, especially if you're in a position of authority, like this gentleman was with the water company. He came in. He's supposed to be a professional, knows what he's doing in this industry, and had a badge on from the company, and he said how prestigious the company was, so he's giving himself that position of authority. Physical therapist or a doctor, they have that position of authority. So if we take that position and take observations and make them dangerous and make them things that scare people into needing our services, that's not okay. All right, and that's where evidence comes in, because the evidence is the bullshit detector. The evidence and research, that is what is going to stop that. That's what allows us to separate what's dangerous, what's serious, what needs to be acted upon, versus what doesn't. So that doesn't mean that if there's no evidence to support something, that it's not true. It just means that we need more research. But if we don't have that research, you can't come to those conclusions. That's my point. So keep that in mind when you go to anything, whether it be a mechanic, a doctor, or if you get your water sample tested. Keep that in mind. Always question. Always ask respectfully. That's an interesting conclusion. What makes you think that? Or what makes you? Where is the evidence that is true? And by all means, if they have the evidence, that's the goal. The goal isn't to make people feel stupid or put someone on the spot. The goal is to find the evidence and learn from it. So, so always question where people are getting their information from. Not in a bad way, in a good way, because you want to learn. And if they take offense to it, if they get defensive, chances are that they don't know what they're talking about. All right, so that was my story. The point here is, if you're going to say something, or if someone is going to tell you something, we have to figure out where that information is coming from, and if it's coming from a reputable resource. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you want, and we'll see you next time.